If we chase wealth, it's vapor. If we chase success, it's vapor. If we chase love, even then, that is vapor. But if these things are ultimate, if they can contribute to some type of...
Okay, anybody who, people in the chat who love somebody, throw some ones in the chat if you love somebody. Go ahead. If there's a person in your life that you say that you love, that you really feel a deep connection to on like an emotional level, throw a one in the chat for me. Okay, now I want you to think of that person, and I want you to consider that this guy just called your relationship with that person vapor. He said it's meaningless, purposeless. You should hate this guy. So I don't really hear about very many atheists turning to Christianity, and usually when I hear about that, it's like, well, they weren't really atheists before. They were just like non-denominational, like not non-denominational. They were just like not religious, right? They called themselves atheists because they didn't go to church. They didn't really think about God that much, but they weren't like true, like, I don't think there's a God type atheists. That's usually the way that I hear about it. But apparently, this atheist comedian turns to God after hearing just 5 words. Just 5 words. Amazing. Atheists, prepare your ears. Apparently, after hearing these 5 words, you too will turn Christian. So let's see what's going on.
I figured if materialism is it, if it's just about getting stuff, I'll get stuff. I can get my life back on track. I'll focus on the comedy, and I'll work on getting a career going again. And I still had a fairly good reputation in the club world. And anyway, I decided that that's what I'll do. So I'm working now. I'm focused on this. And now we're golfing, him and I. And I asked him, how do you accumulate wealth? Nobody ever taught me how to accumulate wealth. I mean, wealth.
Well, it's easy. You just be born rich, right? Just be born rich. Just don't be poor, dumbass.
And he said, in order to even enjoy the creation, you have to have a relationship with the Creator. And I thought, boy, that sounds neat. You know, like New Agey. It sounded New Agey. So I said, where's that at? He goes, it's in the Bible.
How does that sound New Agey? You have to have a relationship with the Creator? That sounds like from the 14th century, man. What do you mean sounds New Agey? Shut the fuck up.
Oh, okay.
This is such
bullshit. A couple holes went by. Said something else. I go, that's great. Where'd you read that? He goes, it's in the Bible. I said, stop it with the Bible. He goes, what do you mean? I go, I mean, really, who reads the Bible? He said, I do. I go,
atheists. Atheists do. Trust me. If you want to know anything about the Bible, ask an atheist.
Really? He goes, what's your problem? I go, I don't believe in God. I mean, God.
Have you ever watched anything from Beau of the Fifth Column? I want to say yes. I want to say yes, but it's been a long time if I have.
God. You know, really? God's word. It's a little archaic, don't you think? He said, well, let's back up. What's in the Bible that you don't think is true? Maybe I can help you out. I go, I don't know. I never.
I don't think it's true that there was a global flood. I don't think it's true that Jesus died and then came back to life. I don't think it's true that we should be allowed to sell our daughters into sex slavery. I don't think it's true that there are these 10 commandments that we're commanded to follow by the Lord Almighty, and if we don't follow them, we'll go to hell. I don't think hell is real as a concept. I think if you believe that hell is real as a concept, that you're probably not that good of a person, because you have to be chained to a leash in order to, like the leash of hell, in order to think that like doing good things is good, right? Because like I've seen so many Christians be like, well, if you don't believe in hell, why do you do good things? Well, because I'm not a shit person, which you apparently are without the threat of hell dangling over your head, right? So if you want to talk about the things that I don't believe that are in the Bible, those are just off the top of my noggin. I could probably think of a few more if you give me some time.
Read the Bible. He goes, then you're not an atheist, you're a moron. What? And any man who suffers from an anger problem knows, the hair on your neck stands up, your stomach gets a little tight. I think I want to punch this guy for saying that, but then I would have lost access to some really nice...
That's such a, like, not a real... This is so fake. This whole thing's fake. This whole thing is bullshit. Needing an excuse to be a good person means you're not a good person. I agree. Well, I wanted to punch him. Okay, dude.
Nice golf courses. So I said, how so? He said, I'll give you the short answer. To discount and throw away an infinite God in an infinite universe, you yourself have to have infinite knowledge of the entire universe.
No, I just don't have any evidence that God exists. I have evidence of a universe. I don't know that it's infinite. I don't have any evidence that it's infinite, but I think in some capacity, like in my tiny human brain, right? My little meat sack of a brain, the only thing that I can assume is that like time as a concept has like stretched back and back and back and back and back, you know, but I don't know what came before the universe, before the Big Bang, but I know the Big Bang happened. I know that things exist now because of it, and entropy keeps things moving in a linear direction time wise. So like that's the extent of my knowledge. And I have evidence for that. I have demonstrable evidence for that. I don't have evidence of what came before the Big Bang, or if it even makes sense to ask that question, okay? But what I do know is that I don't have any evidence for God, okay? He's never demonstrated that he exists. He's never shown himself to me if he does exist. Like, he just expects me to know that he's there. If he wants me to know that he's there so bad, as an all-powerful being, it shouldn't be that hard to demonstrate that he's there.
It's a self-defeating argument. You cannot defend an absolute negative. What you're denying exists as an omniscient being. In order to deny that, you yourself have to be omniscient.
That's not true.
You can't defend it. And I looked at that man.
Also, it's not that I'm saying there absolutely is no God. I'm saying I don't have any evidence for God, therefore I don't have any reason to believe he's real.
And I said, what?
It's like, this is this flying spaghetti monster argument. How do I know there's not a flying spaghetti monster in charge of everything? I don't have any evidence that he's not.
He said, trust me, Jeff, I say this out of love. You are not smart enough to be an atheist. I said, yeah. And he said, I'd like to help you out. I go to a church in Denton, Texas, Tom Nelson's, Denton Bible. He said he teaches the Bible. He does not.
If that was enough to convince you as an atheist to go to church, you're not just like, you're a dumbass. You're stupid. He's a dipshit. Either the story is bullshit or he is a dipshit.
Tell you to check your brain at the door. He makes you reach intellectually, and he says,
wait, check your brain at the door?
He does not tell you to check your brain at the door.
Does not tell you, okay.
He makes you reach intellectually, and he says, I think you would enjoy that. And I said, would it cost me any money? He goes, nope, I'll sign you up. And then, can I send you a Bible? I go, if it doesn't cost me anything, you send me whatever you want. So the Bible came, I threw that in a junk drawer, the tapes started coming, and for a year and a half, those tapes came, and we had a friendship. It was basically revolved around comedy and golf. And he never once said to me, I sent you tapes, did you listen to them? I sent you a Bible, did you open it up? He'd end every conversation the same way. Hey, how are you and Tammy doing? I go, not too good, Phil. We're going to get that divorce at some point. I got to fill those papers.
Oof, L.
For a year and a half. And we went home and we tried. We tried. And summer came that year, and she said,
I can't imagine why this dipshit would have gotten divorced.
Taking the kids to Ohio to go with to be at my parents. And while I'm gone, you got to get your life.
You stay out of Ohio.
If you don't want to do comedy, don't do comedy. But you got to do something. We're losing the house. We were a couple months out of our mortgage at that point, and they were contacting us. And
then God saved us, right? That's where it's going. God saved us.
But I'll work on it. And she gathered up these Bible.
How did God save us? Well, there was a funny coincidence that happened. And I think that was God talking to me. God didn't save the 2-year-old with cancer that died just a few seconds ago. Right? He decided that I was more worthy of saving. Because I had relationship problems and was about to lose my house, which would have forced me to like downsize to an apartment or something. But that was more important than the 2-year-old dying of cancer.
Tapes.
Very good.
Year and a half's worth. They were everywhere. On the fridge, under the sink. You ladies can imagine. She's been cleaning around them for a year and a half, collecting dust, everything. She gathers them all up, and she brings them into the living room. And she throws them on the floor before she leaves. And she says, you either listen to these things or I'm throwing them out. Now I got a bunch of God's words sitting on the floor, and this struggle comes in. It's nothing but biblical trash. That's when at one point my head screamed at me, it's biblical trash. And I start to walk away, and it's like,
pretty shitty of God to give me asthma. You're just not grateful enough. God gave you asthma as a test, okay? God made your most important function breathing and then said, hey, by the way, you don't get to breathe sometimes. And he did that as a test to you. He tests his strongest, he gives his hardest test to his strongest warriors. You're one of God's strongest warriors and you would deny his existence? How dare you?
One up. So I finally just walk over there like it's on fire, and I rip one open and I throw them on the floor, and it's Ecclesiastes.
It's a goof. It's funny.
And it starts
Think
out
about
meaningless,
it. It's funny.
meaningless. And I went, what's meaningless? What's meaningless?
It's really funny when God makes your most important vital function breathing and then takes it away from you. Something that he did to me when I was the ripe old age of 8. Okay? I had an emergency that was a few days coming, whereby I was losing my voice and I was starting to gasp a little bit for breath. And then I woke up one night and suddenly I just couldn't breathe at all. And so it was like trying to breathe through a coffee straw. It was awful. And then my parents, not knowing what to do, said, okay, well, we'll just help you out, right? Because they don't want to take me to the doctor because that shit's expensive. So like, okay, this is going to be fine. And finally, like my parents took me to the hospital and, they stuck a little what is it, a laryngoscope or whatever down my throat, and I coughed and hacked up like a bunch of gunk, and I could breathe again. Holy shit, thank God, right? Except no, because God's the one that did that to me. It was a goof, right? It was a prank. It was just a prank. He was just testing me.
And it went on to talk about Solomon's conclusions and the book of Ecclesiastes. And years later, Christians said to me, the first time I shared this at a church.
I've had, ever since then, I literally don't take breathing for granted.
Somebody grabbed me. God used Ecclesiastes? God used the book of Ecclesiastes to lead you to Jesus. I go,
Not to mention my high school asthma
it's a fairly
problems.
cynical book. I go, well, you didn't know me like God knew me. Trust me. I found Ecclesiastes the most exhilarating thing I'd ever heard. Meaningless. It's all meaningless. Everything is meaningless. There's no purpose. Everything. I was like, and then what I got out of that first tape was this: life without God will have no meaning. Without meaning to your life, there's no purpose to your life.
My life has plenty of meaning. Okay, it has both plenty of meaning and no meaning at all. Okay, if you can't find meaning in your life in the absence of God, your life is empty, and you've filled it with God. And what is God? He's a guy that you don't know, that you say created you in the entire universe, and then left you to fend for yourself. Okay, you have filled your life with a fictional absent father. That's what you've decided gives meaning to your life, is a fictional absent father. Good job.
A purpose to your life, you might as well off yourself. And I'm thinking, wow, that's in the Bible? So I ripped open every envelope looking for more Ecclesiastes tapes. There's got to be another one in
Embrace
there.
positive nihilism.
And I put that in there, and this is it. This was another one of Solomon's conclusions. Again, paraphrasing what was in the book by this pastor. But it was, if happiness was an act of human will, we'd all be happy. You ask anybody in this room what you want out of life. I just want to be happy. Well, what is that? How do you define that? If it's the next iPod, the next man, the next woman, the next job, the next car, the next ad infinitum, you're in for a long haul while you're down here on earth.
I mean, I'm pretty happy now. I'm happy at the moment, like doing my stream. I don't know, you just find passions. You have any passions besides God? Like, have you ever actually thought about what you enjoy doing? Do you enjoy comedy? You know, like, do you like standing up and, like, does that give your life some sense of purpose, some sense of meaning and fulfillment? Or are you just doing this for money? Because it sounds like you're just doing this to make a living. Nobody actually says that they find meaning in their iPod, okay? Nobody says that. What would make me happy is if my sleep paralysis demons help pay the rent. True. A lot of people would just be happy with more money and more comfort and more stability. Yeah, definitely a grifter.
Solomon's conclusions were nothing of this earth will ever give you lasting joy and happiness outside of God. So I'm sitting there listening to this, and I knew this because I did this. I went to the mirror.
I knew this.
Affirm yourself. Oh, what a load of garbage that turned out to be. All I wanted to know is I'm listening to this, and something is happening inside of me. And at one point, I wanted to run on the lawn and hold the Bible up. What a book! I was doing studies in my car, staring with my leg, making notes in my Bible. I almost met Jesus before I met Jesus. I mean, I'm running them off the...
What the f*** is wrong with you? You're insane. You had a mental break. Man read the Bible and had a mental break. What would make me happy is if I was allowed to stop being an existential fear of right-wing politicians. Yeah. Is this guy drunk? This guy's insane. Either that or he's grifting. Probably the latter.
The road, they're waving at me one finger at a time. I'm like, I love you too, you know.
Yeah, because you almost killed them.
Wow.
That was very unsafe of you to do.
I have no idea why.
God made him do it, though. God made him do that.
There was this moment in my life where God said, this guy has had enough. For the first time, I realized that I wanted an explanation for all these years. I wanted somebody to explain to me God so that I got it, so that I understood it, and it made a difference in my life. But the truth was I needed a revelation from God. Without the revelation, the explanation means nothing. And all of a sudden, everything was starting to change. The way I talked to people, the way I looked at people.
Ecclesiastes 12:8.
What the okay, we suddenly switched over.
It gives the final assessment, which is the same as the first assessment in Ecclesiastes 1:2. Everything is futile, fleeting, meaningless, and absurd. The conclusion helps us understand the purpose behind exposing the meaninglessness of life. Solomon wants us to realize that God imposed a curse on the world to show us the
evangelical jump scare. Nice.
Meaninglessness of following our own devices.
What's meaningless about following your own devices? About doing whatever you want to do? What's meaningless about that? It's just as meaningless as following a fictional absent father.
Ultimately to drive us to him. Thus, the point of Ecclesiastes, like every book of the Old Testament, is ultimately to make you wise for salvation through faith in Jesus Christ, per 2 Timothy 3:15. When we see
Is this think before you sleep? Yeah.
death up close in hospital visits, the suffering of a loved one, or the passing of a friend,
We
it
haven't checked in on
signals
that guy in a while.
there is something better out there. That's the
should do that
point of
next.
Ecclesiastes. Everything is meaningless without Jesus. We see this in the conclusion. Solomon wrote...
Oh, this is the piss tank that they put Jesus in. You guys know Piss Jesus? Actually, I don't even know if I can show it on stream, but look up Piss Jesus if you've never seen it.
Ecclesiastes to shepherd the reader with words that are pleasing, true, convicting, and wise. His words are like goads, spiked sticks that prod cattle down the right path. That's an excerpt from Christ-Centered Exposition, Exalting Jesus in Ecclesiastes. Authors David Atkin, Jonathan Atkin. The human drive for meaning without God is ultimately a nonsensical mirage.
According
Why
to you,
do we have an indwelt desire, hunger for meaning? What
are you reading
is
off
that?
a script?
If we are purposeless pond scum, our desire for purpose is nonsensical.
I mean, we kind of are in a sense, right? And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's freeing. Free yourself of this idea that your life has to have some kind of purpose. Okay? Once you free yourself of that notion, you become truly free. Then you can do whatever you set your mind to. Okay? Be the best pond scum you can possibly be. Go eat the big fish. Okay? Go shit the biggest turd. Who cares? Like, just make your own meaning. If somebody hands you, okay, if somebody hands you a drawing and they say, trace this, your meaning is to trace this, right? As opposed to handing you a blank slate and saying, like a blank piece of paper and saying, draw whatever you want. Which one are you going to respect more, the tracing or the drawing? Even if the drawing looks like shit, at least you made it yourself as opposed to tracing it, you know? Make your own meaning. Figure it out. Be creative.
Why would beings created of only natural processes have a desire for meaning? You may find a lot of discussion among secularists about meaning, but they never really get to the point. I mean, why do we have a drive for meaning in the first place? Within the Christian worldview, it makes sense. There is an alternate.
You can ask that question, but the answer is not fundamentally God. Like, it's a good question. Why do we have a drive for purpose in life, right? That's a fair question, I think, and I don't have a good answer for it, to be honest with you guys. I'm sure if I thought about it for a while, I'd have a good answer. But that doesn't mean the conclusion is that God exists. This is a God of the gaps fallacy, once again. Just because you cannot personally find meaning in your life and you have this insatiable drive for it, does not mean that you get to plop God in and say, this is my purpose. That question can be asked of God as well, and that answer will be just as self-referential as someone deciding meaning for themselves. That is also true. If you think God is this conscious entity that made us in his image, then whatever his meaning is just as arbitrary as whatever our meaning it would be, like our ascribed meaning.
Meaning...
Why does
we
his
can
meaning
have
matter?
salvation and experience a God forever. We can be part of his glorious, infinite plan.
Why?
Without that, our desires for meaning are a mirage.
What's God's purpose? What's God's purpose? Why does he exist? Really, what is his meaning in life? Like in his infinite life? I'd love to know.
If we chase wealth, it's vapor. If we chase success, it's vapor. If we chase love, even then, that is vapor. But if these things are ultimate, if they can contribute to some type of...
Okay, anybody who... people in the chat who love somebody, throw some ones in the chat if you love somebody. Go ahead. If there's a person in your life that you say that you love, that you really feel a deep connection to on like an emotional level, throw a one in the chat for me. Okay, now I want you to think of that person and I want you to consider that this guy just called your relationship with that person vapor. He said it's meaningless, purposeless. You should hate this guy.
Ultimate plan, if they are forever, then that meaning isn't a mirage. A naturalist worldview is just deeply unsatisfying. It doesn't provide us the why. Why do we have deep desires for meaning if we're merely purposeless biological beings that evolved of natural processes, whose thoughts exist only of natural processes, whose every decision and choice is predetermined? That's what Stephen Hawking concluded. Christianity makes a whole lot more sense. Christ is king, every knee will bow. Absolutely.
I hate this guy. Every knee will bow. Make me. Come make me.
Hey,
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more, hit the notification bell to be notified when I upload. If you enjoy my content, you enjoy what I do, I really appreciate any financial help that I can get. Go to youtube.com/AlecGunterTTV/join. You got some awesome benefits, such as seeing early videos, awesome emotes that you can use in the comments of YouTube videos, and a sweet badge next to your name. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'd really appreciate if you join. It is cheaper than the cost of a blowjob from your mom. So with all that being said, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.